Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Public Input Design Committee. We're excited. Today we've got a lot of guests and hopefully it will be a great, engaging day. We look forward to having the public also participate and share your thoughts as we move forward. Why don't we start with roll call? Alvaro, will you do it?
Yes, I will go ahead and do it. Am I unmuted? Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. I have troubles with my audio sometimes, but here we go. All right. Commissioner Ahmad?
Here.
Commissioner Akutagawa? Commissioner Anderson?
Here.
Commissioner Fernandez?
Here.
Commissioner Fornashari?
Here.
Commissioner Sanai?
Here.
And Commissioner Turner?
Here.
We have a quorum.
Great, thank you. Christian, can we go to public comment?
We can, and we are joined by Katie, was able to log on and will be helping us with that, Chair.
Here I am. Can you hear me? Yes? All right. In order to maximize transparency and public participation in our process, the commissioners will be taking public comment by phone. To call in, dial the telephone number provided on the live stream feed. It is 877-853-5247. When prompted to enter the meeting ID number provided on the live stream feed, that I do not have at my current location. Christian, do you have it in front of you?
It is 965-8366-7228.
Thank you. When prompted to enter a participant ID, simply press the pound key. Once you have dialed in, you will be placed in a queue. To indicate you wish to comment, please press *9. This will raise your hand for the moderator. When it is your turn to speak, you will hear a message that says, the host would like you to talk, and to press *6 to speak. If you would like to give your name, please state and spell it for the record. You are not required to give your name to give public comment. You are not required to provide your name to give public comment. Please make sure to mute your computer or live stream audio to prevent any feedback or distortion during your call. Once you are waiting in the queue, be alert for when it is your turn to speak, and again, please turn down the live stream volume. And the subcommittee, the commission members, and staff may not communicate with or receive communications about redistricting matters from anyone outside of a public hearing. Please visit our website for further information on how to submit official public input at https://www.wedrawthelinesca.org. And we do have someone in the queue. We'll go ahead and let them in.
Thanks.
And the floor is yours.
Hi, Commissioners. Good afternoon, and good afternoon to all of our guests that are attending the meeting today. This is Jacqueline Cotto, State Director of Civic Engagement Policy with NALEO Educational Fund. Thank you so much for your welcoming energy in creating this space for us to call in and invite our voices and recommendations. I am calling to uplift a joint letter we sent to the Commission last year on October 20th, where we provided you with a set of recommendations for community outreach and engagement. And I wanted to just kind of uplift two items today that could provide a meaningful opportunity for our community members to participate in the COI meetings. One of them is the creation of a mechanism that will offer members of the public some certainty around the time they will be testifying at a particular meeting, such as having an appointment or window of time schedule that can offer them a time slot to testify so that we can potentially prevent situations where they don't have to endure long waits that can possibly discourage public input. And the other recommendation that I wanted to uplift is around having a system where individuals have the capability to share their visuals, such as the maps they will be discussing during the meeting, so that both the commission and the participant can view the materials in real time. And so that's what I wanted to voice today. I want to thank you again for your hard work and dedication. And if you need me to resend the letter, please let me know, and I'm happy to do so. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Cotto. No, we do have the letter, and we do refer back to it often. If any commissioner or staff or guest need it, let us know. We are very thankful for all that input. It feels like a long time ago when you sent it the first time.
Thank you so much for referring back to it. We really appreciate you taking in our recommendations. Thank you.
You're welcome. With that, I wanted, hope you're all enjoying feeling how long it takes to actually get into the meeting. I wanted to first go through just our agreements today for participation. Our committee meetings are a little different than our business meetings in that we view everyone as being part of this collaborative process, and therefore we'd like to just refer to each other by our first names. And I did double check, besides James and Jamie, most there aren't that many names. We don't duplicate names, so feel free to use each other's first names, and that includes we the commissioners. Please refer to us as Patricia or Patricia. Actually, refer to me as Patricia because we do have two names. Sorry, Patricia. We do have two Patricia, so I'll be the English version and she's the Spanish version, so we don't get confused. And the other agreements is just to please do step up and share your ideas, and step back and let others also speak. If you're tired of hearing your voice, guess what? So are we. So no, just kidding. But just do allow for that space so that we can go back and forth. If you disagree with an idea, try to think through a way to ask a question to move an idea forward, and forward means to its end as well as moving it forward to a full fruition. But try to think through, by thinking through a question to ask the person who's given it, it gives you time to think through what you might or might not like about the idea. Today is about brainstorming. We'll apply legal, budget, and other reviews later. So let's not stop someone from thinking through something because we don't have the budget, or legally Bagley King won't let us do that or whatnot. We'll deal with all of that later. Right now, we just want to get your ideas. We have a really great collective set of creative brains, and that's what we want today. And no idea that we talk about today, even if we end up talking just about one idea, is a CRC, commission adopted strategy until the total commission reviews it, discusses it, and approves it as a strategy. So it's really about brainstorming today and thinking new ways. I do want to say that we purposely, some people used to call this a public input meeting, design meeting. What meeting was in the word, and we have purposely pulled it out because we felt that was even restricting our way of thinking about how can we take public input. COVID is a terrible thing that's happened to all, but it's also an opportunity to try new things, and it's gotten us to use technology in new and different ways, as well as connecting in new and different ways. So what I wanted to do really quickly, so we can all kind of get to know each other, is just if you could share your first name and your community of interest in 10 words or less. Share one of your communities of interest. I like to always say that most people belong to multiple communities. So if you can choose one of your communities of interest and in 10 words or less, describe it. And so for me, I would say I'm Patricia, and I live in the Vibrant region on the San Diego oh, well, I just said my city, on the Mexico-US border. Neil?
See, I'm Neil, and I live in a special district that is for our water and our sewer system. And we've really had some challenges with the way that's being managed. So that's my community of interest.
Marcy?
Hi, I'm Marcy Kaplan. I have small children and I'm a frequent park goer. And my community interest is families with small children who use the parks.
Great. Isra?
Hi, everyone. My name's Isra. My community of interest, as you all know, is the renting community. So I have a lot of thoughts about housing access and availability.
Thank you. Jamie?
I'm Jamie. My community of interest is all of Mendocino County, and we've been experiencing an influx in tourism since COVID that has created some interesting new dynamics.
Alvaro?
Yes, I'm Alvaro Hernandez, and first name, I'm sorry, Alvaro. And my community of interest is because of my kids playing sports. You know, we go into different counties, and so trying to capture all the different sporting activities within our range of activities that we are involved in. So that's it.
Great.
Thank you.
Stephen?
Good afternoon. My name is Stephen. My community of interest is suburban. As a father with a 4-year-old, I am also interested in park development and a walkable neighborhood.
Great. Thank you. Alicia? Alicia? There we go.
Sorry, I didn't catch all of it. That's a lot of pressure because right now I'm listing 4 communities of interest. I'm Alicia. So I've got to pick one, and that's kind of hard. So I will go with I'm from a rural community, agriculture, and with a I guess emphasis on farm laborers. I mean, I'm surrounded by farmers, but I also have a heart for the farm laborers. But I have 4 others, and you know that we have more than one community of interest. But anyway, thank you all for
limited time. Julia?
Hi, yeah, I'm Julia. So one of my communities of interest is kind of a multiracial, really urban areas in Oakland where we're really struggling with affordability and displacement issues.
Thank you. Andrew?
Hi, I'm Andrew, and as I live in Washington, D.C., I have 2 children, 15 and 13, and one community of interest is thinking a lot about schools for not only my kids, but other kids in our neighborhood.
Thank you. James?
Good afternoon, everybody. James here. My community of interest is similar to Stephen and Marcy, parent of school-age kids. So my community of interest is my school district in Northeast Los Angeles.
Great. Thank you. Trina?
Hello, everyone. I'm Trina, and my community of interest is mixed family homeowners that border an agricultural area, and we lack also middle school access.
Great. Thank you. Karen?
Hello, everyone. My name is Karin, and my community of interest today is West Oakland, where we are dealing with enormous environmental issues, predominantly resulting from the fact that we are enclosed by freeways and also are very close to the Port of Oakland, and we deal with a lot of traffic from that. Thank you.
Whoops, sorry. Thank you, Karen. Freddie?
Hi, I'm Freddie. My community of interest would be a community that is a chicken owning community here in the city of Downey, but also right in the middle of 4 major freeways. So we're sort of encapsulated by 4 different freeways. So air and environmental issues are pretty important here too.
Great, thanks, Freddie. Linda?
Hi, everyone. I'm Linda Kutagawa, and I'm going to kind of take a page out of Alicia's book. I'm going to talk a little bit about, and maybe this might also, for any of the public that's listening in, it might also help think about, what you think is your community of interest. One of my communities of interest is where I live. I live in a coastal community in Huntington Beach. Please no comments about other rallies and things like that. That's something separate, but I live near both the beach and the wetlands, and that's a particular area of interest in terms of seeing how the preservation of, natural resources is important. But my office and my work is based in the Little Tokyo area of Los Angeles, and that is also another community of interest from a perspective of gentrification and also cultural preservation of one of the 3 last remaining Japantowns or little Tokyos in the country. And then the third one is where I grew up and where my father still lives, which is in the East San Gabriel Valley, surrounded by freeways, but also for him as a senior, and just thinking about what is around him. Shockingly, there is no really major grocery outlets.
10 words or less.
Sorry. So just wanted to mention that those are kind of what I'm thinking of.
Yes, I'm a hardcore facilitator now. Jane?
I'm going to say something different. Berkeley, but the built environment, the infrastructure across the state, transmission lines, water, transportation. I'll just stop right there. And housing.
Sorry, Marion?
Hi, I'm Marion. I don't know what my community of interest is aside from the work of the commission, special needs kids and homelessness and generally civil rights issues.
Thank you. Patricia?
Hi, everyone. My name is Patricia, and I would say my community of interest is the Tower District here in Fresno, California, and some of the issues impacting our district is really having safety for children and sidewalks. So I would say that, and also environmental issues impacting the county of Fresno.
Thank you, Patricia. Cecilia?
Sorry, I was trying to put myself off mute. So my name is Cecilia Gomez Reyes. I live in Whittier, and I would say one of the communities of interest is public safety. I live on a kind of a main road in our town, in our city. And being a girl that's from a small town, I've seen it really grow considerably in the years that I've been here. So the neighborhood, there's been increased traffic. It's kind of a forgotten neighborhood. There's been increased traffic, increased crime, increased people experiencing homelessness in our neighborhood. So that's definitely an issue of concern, especially as I mentioned, that I feel that we've kind of been a forgotten neighborhood in our community.
Gracias. Thank you, Cecilia. And thanks everyone for playing along with us, but I feel like we keep telling other people to think of their communities of interest, and maybe we don't stop as often to think about our own. And we should all be thinking about our communities of interest because we do want to hear from everybody. Neil, your turn to facilitate.
Thanks, Patricia. So we're going to jump into part one, a conversation with community leaders and line drawers. For those of you who tuned into our meeting Monday, I guess, we spent an awful lot of time talking about the schedule and how we're going to design our schedule. And one of the issues that we talked about a lot is needing to the commission as a whole needs to deeply understand how the community groups would like to interact with the commission, what their plans are, both pre-census and post-census. And so we wanted to tee up an opportunity for each of the representatives of the community groups to share with this subgroup. We've invited all the rest of the commissioners to watch this part, so that when we meet in a couple more weeks and actually present specific ideas for outreach, they'll have a better understanding of the thoughts of the community groups. And we also want to get the input from the line drawers, from their past experience and the ideas that they have, from last time and moving forward in a COVID world. So if that makes sense, and I think what we'll do is I'm just going to go in the order that you all are listed on our agenda. So I would invite Julia to share. There you are, Julia.
Great, thanks. So if it works okay with you all, I was just going to lead off with a little bit of background on our organization and me, and then mostly do some framing around the Unity Mapping Group, which is a shared space with my colleagues on this call and with Naleo Education Fund as well. So then if they have anything to add in, I certainly welcome that. Don't worry, I won't make a presentation and take up too much time because I know we want to keep this fairly informal, but I want to lay out some framework maybe to start us off. So yeah, my name is Julia. I'm from Asian Americans Advancing Justice Asian Law Caucus. So we're the nation's first legal and civil rights organization that's dedicated to serving low-income API communities. And we provide legal services and do advocacy around a wide range of issues, including housing rights, immigrants' rights, civil rights, criminal justice reform. But our voting rights team really focuses on building representation for API communities. And that sometimes looks like, working on election systems and working with counties to ensure language access and voting. But we also work on redistricting and with helping communities who are transitioning to district election systems for the first time, which has been occurring a lot over the last decade. And I'm a staff attorney on the team, but also a program manager and work with our organizers and policy staff who are not attorneys. So it's important to us to really be engaging in community education and, not just taking a purely legal approach to this work. And I've worked on some of our census policy and providing technical assistance to community-based organizations around the state to support their census outreach work. And then I've also done some of our work around the transition to districts and supporting community groups whose cities are transitioning, who want to make sure the first round of district maps look good. So this is my first decennial redistricting effort, but there are other experts in the room who were there in 2011 who I can defer to at times. So for state redistricting, we're working in partnership with Asian Americans Advancing Justice Los Angeles, a sister organization. And so together we're working to engage API communities around the state. And so that includes the community education piece, getting people excited around redistricting. But it also includes hosting workshops where we can help really dig in on what a community of interest looks like and have people brainstorming together and really talking through it. Because as we all know from this exercise, it's actually kind of hard to name your community of interest, right? So we want to not just provide handouts, but space for people to have that conversation. And then, of course, direct them to provide that COI to you. But we're also going to be listening ourselves because one of our other goals, in addition to turning folks out and getting folks engaged directly with the commission, is to kind of absorb all their input, synthesize it, take it and pair it with data analysis and mapping expertise, and actually come up as a network with a set of proposed draft maps that we think best respect those communities of interest people mentioned and are also empowering to API communities and compliant with the Voting Rights Act. So that's kind of our vision as a network. I'll flag that we're, primarily Asian American groups that are working with CARE to reach AMEMSA communities and are also doing outreach to Pacific Islander communities. We recognize not everyone always falls squarely in one of the racial categories our society uses. So we try to keep that in mind as we build the network as well. So that's kind of our work. But a really important piece that we're ultimately building toward in this effort is what we refer to as unity mapping. So unity mapping is a coalition effort. There are going to be a lot of coalitions around the state that are looking at COI maps and district maps, regional maps, statewide maps. So what we call the unity mapping is just our own way of referring to our own coalition work. So we're working with MALDEF, who's also on the call, the Black Census and Redistricting Hub, James will speak as well, and with NALEO. So those are the core folks at our table. But additionally, we're in touch with a lot of different groups. There are groups around the state who are having statewide conversations, and then there are a lot of regional tables or smaller local coalitions that are engaging in redistricting. And so we want to work together as our orgs, but also be in touch with others. So the kind of like vision behind the unity mapping effort is that we each represent different racial groups and sets of communities in California, but we really have a shared belief that we can come together to come up with maps that really serve all of our communities and that are fair for all of our communities. We have a shared belief that we have more in common than divides us. And we also believe that complying with the Voting Rights Act is of the utmost importance, and that we all need to fight for our communities because they have been historically underrepresented. So we come together with those shared values, and that informs our process of collaboration. It also informs our process of really gathering a wide range of community input in our effort. And it also guides our drafting principles. So we're all doing our work in our own coalitions, but ultimately we do want to sit down together and we do want to find a way to map out some proposals to then carry to you, right? That fit all these different pieces together, because as you well know, there's a lot of complexity here, both in just complying with the different criteria, but also in navigating the diversity of California, whether that's geographic, racial, ethnic, cultural, there's that whole range. And so we're trying to synthesize a whole bunch of different voices and talk to each other, and then share those conversations and a synthesis and a synopsis with you all, ideally in the form of some statewide map proposals that have been vetted with a wide range of groups, and that will give you useful building blocks as you're navigating how to fit all the pieces together. So I'll stop there. If others want to ask, if you all have questions about unity mapping, we can talk more too. But I also want to leave room for James and Stephen.
Yeah, what I thought we do, I should have said this ahead of time, but what I thought we do is I'll let you three go first, and then we'll take a break and do some questions and answers after you three have had a chance to talk. If that sounds okay. So Stephen?
Hello. My name is Stephen Ochoa. I am MALDIF's National Redistricting Coordinator. For those of you who don't know who MALDIF are, MALDIF is the Mexican American Legal Defense and Educational Fund. We were founded in 1968, and we call ourselves the law firm for the Latino community. MALDIF has been engaged in voting rights and redistricting work since our founding. We have our current national headquarters is in Los Angeles, and we also have regional offices in San Antonio, Chicago, Washington, D.C., and a policy office in Sacramento. As the name implies, MALDIF is focused on, again, the rights of Latino community who have been historically disenfranchised. Regarding redistricting and voting rights, specifically, MALDIF has engaged in California redistricting since, since our founding. We worked in the 1990s. We helped gain seats in the LA City and LA Board of Supervisors for Latino communities. In 2000 and 2010, we have participated in we've been participating in California statewide redistricting pretty much since the 90s as well. And we have been engaging in CVRA work throughout the decade as well on behalf of the Latino community. About myself specifically, I am MALDIF's demographer, so I am not an attorney. I will not be giving legal advice, but I have been part of the last two redistricting cycles on behalf of MALDIF in 2001 and 2011. I got my start at UC Berkeley, graduated in 2000. I had a work study job that's for some redhead out of the IGS department. So I have been drawing, and I've been drawing in particular in coalition with African American and Asian American brothers and sisters since that time. I'm proud to say MALDIF was the only organization in 2011 to submit complete statewide plans for Assembly, Senate, and Congress. And we worked with the CAPAFER Alliance, which was headed by the then APALC, now AAJ, Los Angeles, and then the then African American Redistricting Collaborative, ARC, to submit a complete statewide unity assembly plan and a partial Senate plan. So yes, apparently I am an old man in redistricting terms. But my vantage point is from the demographer standpoint as well as a Latino advocate. Specifically, what is MALDIF going to be doing this upcoming cycle? So as Julia highlighted, MALDIF is part of what we call our Unity Map table with the Black Hub, AAJ, and NALEO. MALDIF will be specifically partnering with NALEO for community grassroots workshops targeting basically Latino communities throughout the state. We're still planning out that agenda. Some of that is waiting on the commission to set its agenda, because we usually go ahead of when the commission is going to focus on an area. So last cycle was obviously an in-person hearing. So we usually try to make sure we were ahead of the commission so the community members could learn about redistricting, learn about the Voting Rights Act, learn about communities' interests, get some best practices on how to testify and submit information to you. But these workshops also doubly serve as a way for us to get information from the communities. So when we start drafting maps, we have a community basis as well as our legal basis for creating, responsible maps that comply with the Constitution, comply with the Federal Voting Rights Act, and then respect as many communities of interest as possible. With a focus again on particularly respecting those that are traditionally underrepresented. And I concur with what Julia said. MALDIF believes, underrepresented communities, there are ways to work together. And, we come from a similar mindset of civil rights advocacy and promotion of those that are traditionally disenfranchised, that, we can get in a room as friends and family do and argue harder than we do in public, and then create a good product that we believe would serve California. Serve you who are trying to serve California to the best of your abilities, as are we. So I'll just leave it at that for now, and I'll pass it on to James.
Thanks, Stephen. First of all, apologies if you hear background noise. My kids are out of school right now. James Woodson, I am the policy director at the Black Census and Redistricting Hub. I know the commissioners have met me before, and so I will not go necessarily deep into what the Black Hub has done and our sort of background and outreach strategies, because I know we've talked about that before. But I will say for folks that were not part of that presentation, that we have a coalition of 30 organizations across the state. We started our work on census, trying to maximize participation in African-American communities throughout the state. So we did that work, certainly ran into challenges as the COVID-19 pandemic stopped some of our normal tactics that we would normally use, like door knocking and things like that, having events. But we did our best to reach folks. We are trying to keep that energy, right, and take it into redistricting. And so we've been preparing our coalition to engage in redistricting matters. They are either in the process of holding community of interest sessions or planning them over the next few weeks, ultimately to be able to lift those up to you all. I think Julia talked a lot about what our unity mapping process looks like. So I won't go into that. I'll just say that I ditto everything that she said, and also Stephen and just sort of our approach, right? I think that all of our organizations have a history of working together, to Julian and Stephen's point, not necessarily because we agree on everything, but because we really do believe that there are commonalities, right? And that we can work together to achieve common goals. What I will say is that I think there are a few time periods that we think are important, not only to our groups, but to sort of the public in general, to be able to have a really sort of robust public participation process. I think the first is what you all have been thinking about, right? The opportunity to lift up communities of interest and hear those stories, those narratives, the things that tie communities together. Obviously, I think that that's really important, and you all have recognized that. I think we certainly would want time to be able to submit maps, right? Stephen and Julia sort of talked about it, but our goal is to try to synthesize all of the work that our groups are doing, all of the groups that we are connected to try to lift up communities, really sort of district lines and maps that really aren't conflicting, right? So that you all won't have to figure out sort of, which direction to go, that we can have those discussions amongst each other and then be able to lift up something that is coherent and make sense and have a rationale behind it and be able to, for us to be able to explain those to you. I think, the time to present is really key. As we saw even in just lifting up our communities of interest, right? It's hard to stay within a certain time period, particularly when you have multiple communities of interest or you have multiple sort of communities within a district, and explaining how those districts are really sort of tied together. I think it's important to have space for that, particularly as you're looking at like a statewide level, right? Again, it was hard for us to even kind of talk about just even our local communities. But if you think about, the hundreds and thousands of communities across the state, that certainly can take time for you all to see those connections. And then, of course, you all will come out with your draft map. We, of course, will have thoughts about that and I think time to provide feedback, comments, even, not only sort of what we might disagree with, but also the things that we might agree with, right? I think it's important to know both of those things. And again, hear the rationale behind why folks might agree or disagree. So yeah, I think those are the main things. Again, I think we want to make sure that we have ample time, knowing that you all have time constraints and are now dealing with all of that and multiple stakeholders to take into account. But those are certainly the sort of three areas that we wanted to lift up as important to be able to have, again, a robust sort of public participation process. So I will hand it back to Neil.
Well, thank you. That's great. We were going to try to use the Q&A tool, but I can't figure out how to use it. I don't know where to write a question. I guess.
Go ahead, just have them raise their hand. That'll.
Yeah. Well, I have a couple questions to start with. So to get together the unity map that you three had talked about, what kind of time frame do you think that might take roughly for you all to get your unity map together to present? Yeah, Steve.
Sure. Well, Neil, I don't think that's a easy question to answer. And at this point, if we're only focusing on the community of interest portion of discussion and of the commission's process, I would actually just recommend that we maybe schedule another hearing meeting specifically about, the map submission process. The vague answer is it takes as much time as we can get. And obviously there's a lot of things in flux with this census, with this redistricting. It's a redistricting like no other. As much time as we can get is the rough answer, but I mean, there's principles of, once the data is released and adjusted and the statewide database does their work, we certainly need a period. What that period is probably needs to be discussed, but of when the public, not just us, just the public in general, have a chance to submit meaningful plans to the commission with, a presentation opportunity as well, or a presentation vehicle, because many of the plans you're going to get, not just from us, are going to be long and complex. You're going to get maybe some single district plans or maybe a regional, but a statewide plan certainly is going to take a long time to explain. So I can't answer that question. It takes some thought. And I do recommend, frankly, that may be another meeting, either offline or a hearing. That would be my recommendation.
Yeah, I appreciate that, but I think that answer was helpful for the commission in general to kind of understand sort of where things are at, and we spent a great deal of time last time talking about our schedule, and in the next meeting or so we are going to have to nail down that schedule. So that helps. Thanks. Patricia, did you have a?
Yeah, can I actually add a piece to what Stephen said?
Yeah, sure.
I just wanted to make the point that particularly compared to last cycle, there are a lot more groups that are focusing on redistricting, who kind of understand the importance. A lot of that is because of just sort of the education that folks who were involved in the last cycle have done over the last sort of 10 years to emphasize the importance of redistricting. But there are, a few configurations that we know statewide of groups that are doing redistricting. There's also a lot of local regional tables that are also focusing not only on local redistricting, but on statewide districts as well. And again, we are sort of in at least communication with all of those groups, and certainly would want to have the time to also incorporate sort of their work and their maps. So just wanted to emphasize, right, that they're, and compared to last time around, there are just more groups to align with.
Okay, thanks. Okay, well, I'll open it up to the panel. Patricia, did you have a?
I just wanted to say I appreciate Stephen what you said, and regarding, it is a long process and there's a lot of different phases. And I think we're all kind of agreeing on what the 3 phases are of this work. And we intentionally kind of, Stephen, you had asked me this in an email, focused on kind of the community mapping side, the COIS part today because of limited time, but also we need to think through that piece. So I appreciate your suggestion to have, as we move through each phase, designing it, having these types of meetings where we get to work collectively. Neil and I did get to speak with James and Julia and their colleague for a while. And so we know what questions we would want you to ask, but we're not going to ask them for you. If there, as the commissioners, as you heard, commissioners and staff, as you heard their presentations, and line drawers, what struck you, or where do you feel you need to go a little deeper in understanding? Because our processes, as I kind of got out of it last time, is we're parallel processes, and then we all of a sudden intersect, and then we're parallel, and then we intersect, and just being able to really understand how we can support each other's processes and the intersections. We did have some questions that came up in our earlier design meetings. I don't know, Linda, you had a few last time. I don't know if you remember them, but feel free to ask the questions now.
Yeah, so it's Trina. I want to go back, not necessarily back. Stephen, when you were talking a minute ago about your history and being the old guy, so in redistricting, what can you just name, just staying in this first part of communities of interest and what have you, there's been a lot of education. We certainly have more time, and we're also going out, I know, doing our public presentations and all of that, a lot of talk about community. What else was missing from the last cycle? What else possibly can be done around the areas? It's just education, we're doing that, but could you direct pockets of organizations, pockets of people, areas? I'm just trying to make sure if there's something else that we can be doing in addition to broadly educating. What would you say about that?
Educating specifically on communities of interest.
Mm-hmm.
I think the one thing before I answer your question, I think the one thing to understand is that every redistricting is different, every jurisdiction is different. And this is going to be my 3rd cycle. And I feel comfortable saying that every time there's something new. So 90 is different than 2000 was a light year difference from 1990 because of the creation of quote unquote more affordable GIS software. The MALDIF team of the 90s literally created districts off of index cards. They wrote down an index card with every tract in the state, and that's how they would hand tabulate, and it had a large file cabinet. I've seen it, it's in our basement, and that's how they would add up things. So GIS was a big game changer in 2000. In 2011, the game changer was, at least in California, was the commission process. And that was a new process. This cycle, the new thing will be new voices, as James highlighted. So I think you are on to tackling the challenge of your current process. In that, as James says, there are even more voices this cycle, but many voices they're still understanding redistricting as well. So the statewide database has developed the COI tool, or COI tool as Karin calls it. That's a game changer, is having an electronic submission. Mm-hmm. With the advent of COVID, frankly, the new game changer is also video. So if you were to maintain video hearings, or a mix of in-person and video hearings, the video hearing may give you an opportunity to get people who could not always go to an in-person hearing. In Los Angeles, our hearings were in LA City Hall, Culver City Hall, very hard to drive and navigate and park. You know, in the rural Central Valley regions, you know, you'd have maybe one in Fresno or one in Bakersfield. All right, where does Tulare go? Do Tulare residents go? The final maps, I mean, towards the end, they were only in Sacramento. So if you wanted to talk to the commissioners in person, you had to send an email, or send an email, or be in person in Sacramento. So if you're asking what's the challenges of last cycle were there were voices, but it was still hard to get people to participate because they would have to go to hearing. They were on first come, first served basis. I think that's why you had a recommendation of like maybe some sort of DMV appointment system, you know, and a time block, because you would have people getting there at say 5 o'clock, and by the time they signed up, they aren't testifying until 9 o'clock. Are the people going to stay there for 3 hours to give their 2-minute spiel? So, you know, I think you're on your way to thinking about how to capture creating a system for large community of interest testimony receipt. On the education component, I think you're doing as well as you can. There are a lot of new voices. There's a lot more organizations, a lot more interest in this redistricting. You know, I think to encourage folks to start participating in the community of interest submission process as well. Because, you know, the end of this first piece is, you know, creating your small building blocks. If the community of interest, think of them as the Lego blocks or the Dupo blocks. You know, what are the smallest piece that you don't want to break up? You know, the individual pieces. And then at some point, demographers have to figure out, argue, whatever the term is, how to put them together, ideally in an equitable way, and from all advocacy standpoint, in a way that hopefully improves, you know, helps the traditionally disenfranchised. So I said a lot right there. I hope that I answered your question.
That was helpful. It was, but so that I can get all of mine in and step back, tied to that, you all, I think James, you and Julia, Stephen, all talked about, of course, working in your coalition spaces, doing a lot of work, but coming together for the good of the community and being able to integrate all of that, synthesize voices. I'm wondering if it would be helpful, or it would be helpful for me at least, if not in this session, to kind of flag what is the metrics or what is the process you overlaid to say, we know we have to work together. You talked about some of that friction, but making sure that I'd be interested in knowing how you've worked through that, because no doubt that's a place that we'll need to also work through conflicting communities of interest or districts as they're drawn. That, and then the last piece so that I can stop talking. James, you specifically put a plea out and says we want to also be sensitive to the amount of time that we're allowing for presenting. And I'd like to know what is your ideal of a right amount of time, recognizing the increase of testimony that we'll receive.
Yeah, James, Stephen,
James, you want to go
just
first?
Jump in. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, sure. You know, I think to Stephen's point, right? We was, of course, like as much time as you can give us, right? I think there are a couple of different factors. It's depending on how many folks that you have, right? I know you all already have sort of timeline pieces that you're thinking about. So I don't know that there's like a specific answer. You know, we hopefully will come to you with a unity map, and so we will be, you know, presenting that in some senses as a team, right? And so that might help streamline things. But again, you know, I think the key is, right, we are not just talking about one district. Whether it's, you know, we're going to be talking about 3 different maps, right? Assembly, congressional, and Senate, ideally. And there's multiple districts to talk about, and multiple sort of communities of interest in those districts. And so it's not necessarily satisfying, but to Stephen's point, I think we would want as much time for you all to be able to grasp sort of the rationale behind the map. As possible. You know, I don't know if Stephen can talk about sort of what happened in the last cycle, but certainly I think we would want to have you all be able to understand our rationales behind putting the maps together.
Well, and because we're workshopping this, because we're workshopping it, not following tip, I guess what I'm looking for, and I appreciate and understand, will give us as much time as possible, but recognizing giving you as much time as possible, unlimited, will shorten other, what we can receive on the other end. And even if you can respond based on tell me, because I don't know, I'm not the old person in redistricting one way or the other. If you were providing, for example, a district map or statewide, say, shoot, Trina, that can take, I might need to talk to you about that for 8 hours, or I would need an hour or 10 minutes, or I'm trying to get some sense of what it is what it typically is needed. If indeed we said, hey, we got all the time we need, talk to us about what we need to understand. What, at least on your end, would that request look like?
So I just want to, there's two questions you had, just making sure I have track them. You asked how much time we need to present maps, but you also were asking earlier about, I guess, principles of how we worked together, right? Regarding the timeline, or how much time to present, when we can present a plan, I can only offer what happened last time. And from my memory, and I may ask Karen if she can refresh some of if she recalls some of this, because she was present at some of those hearings too, some of those hearings as well. When we were before last commission prepared their drafts, they allowed groups to present. There was like 2 days, I want to say March 24th and 25th, 2 days in Northridge, where anyone who had a plan or a partial plan were given an allotment of time. I don't recall partial plans if they got the same amount of time, but I know for statewide plans, it was we were allotted an hour per plan. And Maldif, I were, we had 3 plans, so I had 3 hour allotment. I don't think I used it all. To be fair, I was on 2 hours of sleep, so I may not remember all of it, other than feeling tired. But that that was probably, but given the fact that I was specifically talking about such a large amount of Latino voting rights, what we believe were Latino voting rights mandated districts, that was a lot of districts to go through. You're talking about, 25% or so of each map, right? So that's what I focused on. And then as I presented my districts of interest, and then I kind of talked through the little bit of the architecture around those districts, trying to figure out this is the best I could do for these other areas, which I frankly did not know as well. But did what I could, listening into what the commissioners were hearing from other Californians. So your hearing is actually double for us, because it's like they might not be areas we totally focus on, and that information is helpful in crafting the rest of the state out of our areas of interest. So I don't recall if partial plans got a full hour. I don't think you would need an hour to talk about one district. I don't know if you may or may not need, you may need an hour for 5 districts. I don't know. I would actually just ask other groups who have done regional plans, what I would call a regional or a partial plan. And so that's what we had last time. I think that was enough for what we were presenting. What I will say is not enough is 2 minutes. Last cycle, when APOC, ARC, and Maldif submitted the Unity Plan, which was after the commission's first draft plan, that commission at that point had said no more full presentations. And so we basically lined up back to back to back. My colleagues and I, we took 2 minutes each, or 1 minute, 2 minutes each, and then quick index card. That's how we were able to present the Unity Plan, and which was obviously I would say it was very useful to the last commission on the assembly side.
Stephen,
2 minutes, not enough. An hour, maybe.
Can I just remind all of us that we're kind of talking about the end process. We're getting to the third phase, and we really need to figure out the first phase. The communities of interest, and how and we'll talk about it a lot more in the second half of this meeting, and we'll all get to think through. And this isn't the last time that we'll be inviting different folks who can actually help us think through this. We hope that that's why we created kind of a design committee, was so that we could work collaboratively. But if we could go back to the collecting the community maps, the small bricks, as Stephen was saying. And before we go there, James, I think you had something you wanted to share with all of us about a community of interest is not a community of interest is not a community of
Yeah, sure. So I did want to clarify, because I have heard that there was a quote attributed to me, and I don't know if I'm disagreeing with myself or just the quote, right? But you know, what I would say is that when you're talking about large kind of land masses like an assembly, senate, or congressional district, I think you just think about communities of interest in a different way. And particularly as you're starting to think about how you're putting communities of interest together to put together district maps, I just think that folks think about those differently, right? And so, you know, as if I am appearing before you all and I'm lifting up a community of interest, I think I'm thinking in a bit more of a sort of macro level kind of mindset. But if I'm appearing before a commission that's putting together school districts, right? There are, not only am I thinking about like smaller kind of territory, but I'm also thinking about different factors, right? There are things that hold school districts together that are just different than assembly and senate districts. Same thing with like water districts, right? There are things that hold people together around water that are just different when you're thinking about kind of assembly, senate, and congressional districts. So I think the thing I lifted up with Patricia and Neil was just that folks that are giving you communities of interest may think about those differently for local commissions. And you know, they may actually be the same, right? And they may actually want you all to transfer that information. But they also may not, because they'll think about them differently. So I was just sort of encouraging to kind of think about that and how, you know, how folks would be able to like sort of opt in or opt out of transferring that information to a local commission, depending on, you know, if they want those things to be transferred. So I'll step back.
Thanks, James. And just so that you know, we did give that feedback to lessons learned subcommittee to look at it when they create the COI tool for next time. And I haven't, I know that at one point we spoke, and we will follow up with the statewide database about when participants complete the COI tool, they do get an email, they do get their map sent back to them, and encouraging them to submit those to their local redistricting processes if they want. So that would be the way to opt in or opt out this time, but we're still working on that. I did want to bring in Andrew and Jamie and Karen, and Paul will be here at some point. He's currently doing a presentation right now with Russell, a commissioner. So they're supposed to end soon, and he was going to join us. But what is helpful for us, we're trying to understand there's all these different parallel processes, and the local process is one of those parallel processes. And Karen and Jamie, you have experience from the 2010 here in California, and Andrew, you have experience with the Arizona. And so we wanted just to see what what else you think we should be thinking about, especially as it's coming, to the first phase, the communities of interest in collecting that information. And if you haven't I think we've hinted at it, but we're still designing, and we're not sure that it'll have to be we have a COI tool, we have community group, there's a lot going on, so it may not necessarily need to be hearings. So and we'll talk more about that creative process on the second half.
Thank you for inviting us. My name is Karin again, and I was trying not to say something, but I'm going to say it anyway. If Stephen is the old guy in the room, then I'm not entirely sure what that makes me, since Stephen started his redistricting career pretty much with me. Yes, I've done quite a few redistricting commission hearings, have been involved with many different commissions on the local level, and Jamie has worked with me on quite a few of these projects also. And first, I'd just like to say that I think all of these processes really are very unique. Every community is unique, and every commission's been unique, and every process has been unique, and that's really the fun of this. And it's incredible because it keeps you on your toes, and that's partially why I was also really excited about this meeting today, because this is kind of how I would wish to start a process like this, is getting in the same room and figuring out what works. So having said that, Jamie and I, we've tried out a few things on the local level and also on the state level, ranging from running community input meetings ourselves without anybody from a redistricting authority, either commissioners or whoever may have been calling the shots at that particular point in the room. We've had some meetings, and I think Jamie might still be a little whiplashed from those, where we had 40 people drawing lines at the same time. And I think Stephen and everybody here who has done these community meetings where everybody's trying to come to one map knows what that's like. Everybody gets really excited and talks all over each other, and there's lots of pointing and no over here and over there, and they're really fun. They may not be the best meetings for a statewide process, because most likely you will have many more people in the room. I think one thing that we've learned, and that I would advocate, and I think probably everybody agrees, is that we understand that there's going to be a wide range of people that are going to come to these meetings, and there will presumably be an opportunity to call in, to Zoom in, to remotely participate and be seen and heard, and we think that's great. Even then, though, there's going to be differences. There's some people that will hear the term COI for the first time when they're coming to the meeting, and some people will have submitted 15 of them already. So they know the tool backwards and forwards, and they like to make sure that their COI is available and on the screen, and please pull it up so that they can talk about it. And other people are going to go, hey, I am not here about the COI. I'm here to tell you what my neighborhood is, and currently it's split, and please make sure that doesn't happen again, and I'm going to tell you about it. So I think we just have to be open to that. We have to be open to providing handouts, guidelines. This is probably the best way to participate. Let us know where the streets are that are bordering your community of interest, or tell us about the counties that are in your community of interest, but be specific with your geography, things like that. I think having an appointment system is such an important way to really improve participation over the last time. When there's 800 people that want to come to a meeting and want to speak, to be able to know that you are the second person or the 350th person that's going to be speaking is enormously important. And this is, of course, I think something that we, with collective resources, can design for people that are either just dropping by, or that are phoning in, or that are Zooming in, or however they wish to participate. Also, if people can let us know in advance that they perhaps need translation services, interpretation services, that would be really helpful. if we could get people to just give us an idea about where, what area of the state they might want to talk about, that helps us to be more streamlined and support the commission better in being prepared to pull that up very quickly on a map if people want to see it. And so I think there are a number of things that we can do that can be improved from last time, even if we're to some extent sticking to the same idea of having an opportunity for people to participate and, like James said, tell us about their areas, tell us about their communities, and give all of that good information that you need. So,
the line drawers are kind of thinking through. Okay, thanks, Paul. Paul's here. Paul, we made everyone introduce themselves and tell us their community of interest with 10 or less words. Would you like to do that?
Sure. My name is Paul Mitchell with Redistricting Partners. I'd say my community of interest is quickest route to the bike path, or my favorite coffee shop, or where I have to go pick up my daughter from school. So that's mine for now.
Thanks. What would be helpful, just as we kind of understood the process that the community groups are doing, again, what are the parallel processes? So what are the processes? Okay, English is my second language. What is the process that the city and the county redistricting are taking place, and how should we be thinking about them as we're looking? What do we need to know? I hope that was clear.
Sure, I'll dive into that a little bit. And I missed what you guys had talked about for the first hour, so I apologize if there's things that you guys have already gone over. But so we're working with a number of local governments, a handful of counties. Some of the ones that have already gotten started and furthest along would be like Long Beach's Independent Redistricting Commission, which is really patterned after your state process. The redistricting commissions in Oakland and in Berkeley. And we're just getting started with some others that are more the advisory committee style around the state, along with other local redistrictings that are already trying to focus on making sure that they have kind of that open, transparent process that really has become the norm a lot because of the successes of the last commission. The work that was done in 2011 really kind of set the stage and was kind of a proof point for a lot of other agencies, and set an expectation, honestly, that goes down to the county, city level, down to school board, water district. I'll go in and do a redistricting for an agency like a local fire district. And it's their kind of thought pattern that, well, we need to have, public engagement, right? We need to actually hear about the communities of interest. And I think when I first started listening before I was able to log in, I heard James talking about how different agencies have different kinds of communities of interest based on how the public relates to that agency. And I think that's a key part of it. But the biggest, I think, thing that local governments are doing right now is honestly looking to you. A lot of what's happening at the local level, they're in uncharted waters. How do we do public engagement over Zoom? How do we, how and when can we start doing public engagement in person or doing hybrid? What does this all mean for us? What's going to happen with the census data being late? I honestly believe that the census data being late can in some ways be a blessing in disguise. The ability we have to do the more abstract and honestly more kind of impactful community of interest testimony, that will likely benefit a lot of the state and other local redistrictings. And I still feel like as we look towards the fall, and as when we're talking to these agencies, they're wondering, okay, when can we actually start putting maps together? But as we look towards that fall period and the ability to put together maps and to get community of interest testimony, on actual draft plans, again, those agencies are going to be looking to how you do it. Karin mentioned, when you're doing the stuff online and you want public testimony, just the ability to have people sign up and How are you going to manage, if 300 people come in and want to be a part of your redistricting? Again, a lot of the people at those local agencies, they're going to be looking to the decisions you make. So I think that's my biggest thought so far on this process, because you're asking what are cities doing, and a lot of what cities are doing are looking right back at you.
No pressure then.
None at all. Yeah, you just, not only do you have to keep up the good reputation of the last commission, you also have to set the mold for 500 redistrictings around California.
Andrew, is there anything you would like to add from your experience?
Yeah, I just want to, I think, talk about what Stephen touched upon earlier, sort of like the advancements that we've seen between 2011 and 2021. And I think the community of interest tool that the commission is engaging with, I think, is a big thing, because I think one of the frustrations that some of the commissioners that we were working with in Arizona is people would come in and describe their community of interest, but to see a visual of it, I think, is going to be a very big step forward, because they're going to have a number of people who can come in and describe it, but being able to, if there's that opportunity to get them to draw and sort of draw it out, I think is going to be a helpful thing as well. And being able to submit that to have it be submitted to the commission, I think, is going to be a very important thing. And also, I think, also taking, the information that doesn't come in the traditional ways. I think the tool is going to be very helpful and accessible to a lot of people, but not everybody. So I think it's also important to take in mind information that comes in, people who don't want to submit something through the COI tool, making sure that their communities of interest are captured in such a way. And I know we've started that conversation with a few of you commissioners on sort of the data management side of this, where people are physically mailing in maps of their community of interest, or writing a letter of what their community of interest is, making sure that's part of the big picture process, that those are weighed equally as well, and that they're seen by everybody who's involved in the process, and especially by the commissioners, so that they can see that there's going to be people who are coming to meetings, who are going to be calling in and participating to via Zoom. And I think, again, Stephen touched upon that as that's a blessing in disguise, of like being able to connect with people who are around the state and aren't going to be, don't have the ability to drive a couple hours or an hour, or wait there, that if they can wait at home, and that in combination with the appointment type system, I think being able to describe their communities of interest, I think that's going to be a huge step forward, and for the commissioners to be able to see what those communities of interest. So I think that, in Arizona, I know, I think Colleen Mathis, the chair from the 2011 commission, talked to all of you, and she talked about how they drove the combined 29,000 miles around the state to go to all different communities in every corner of the state, big and small. So I thought that was an important part, and hopefully that can be a part of what this commission does. But I think, the hybrid situation where it's some in person, some online, gives an opportunity to, allow more voices to be heard. So that's just, some observations from last time, that, and connecting it to this time, of how there's definitely some great advancements to get information in front of everybody.
Thanks. Jamie, did you want to add anything?
I don't have a ton to add, echoing sort of Karin and Andrew's comments. I think that certainly being able to make an appointment, potentially if speakers can fill out forms ahead of time should they have submitted a COI through the COI tool, where they will receive their unique ID and they can recall that and say in a form, you know, that this is my community of interest. I already submitted it and I would like to speak on it in front of the commission and have it appear on the screen. Being able to know in advance those specific COIs will really help speed along the process in terms of being able to display the COIs for the commission as speakers are speaking on their COIs. And of course, nobody needs to have submitted a COI through the COI tool to be able to give input to the commission at those meetings. And we'll be able to sort of zoom to those areas as well and display the regions or the communities that people are speaking on, regardless of whether or not their COIs have already been submitted through the COI tool. So those are just the two. Those are just my brief notes and echoing a lot of what Karen and Andrew already spoke on.
Thanks. So at 5:30, we need to take a break legally, but we do want to open it up to commissioner questions. Stephen has one, so he'll get to go first.
Just a few things, and maybe this is building on the conversation. As you develop your COI hearing system, I think the one thing I would also make sure you to say is you're going to have a lot of information come in at you. The COI tool is important and revolutionary. I would also just make sure you also start making sure you have, as Jamie was starting to hint, methods for non-COI tool submissions and testimony. There's going to be people, if they're in person, handing maps. There are going to be people online using other COI apps out there. There are other new device services out there, and some organizers are using their own systems. So I start keeping in mind, be aware of that there's other methods, and the COI tool will be the most convenient method, I'm sure, to you, but try not to make sure to give equal weight to the others. Second, I would also, and that point leads to another point of you're going to create a diversity of systems in the way public can participate. It's not going to be all Zoom will disenfranchise some, all in person will disenfranchise others. So I think a hybrid does provide an opportunity for you to serve many Californians. I mean, in person obviously has its drawbacks because, people getting people to the hearings, frankly, and the unsaid thing is there are some, there are intimidation factors. Some people are not comfortable speaking in public too. So, be ready to accept email testimony as well as online and in person. Create, like voting, you want to create as many opportunities as possible to participate and give feedback to you. Then I have one quick correction to say. A colleague emailed me last cycle. We had 30 minutes per plan to present, and it was uniform 30 minutes to everyone. So that's one correction. And then answering a long listed question to Commissioner Trina. About how do we work together? Suggestions. Get your principles settled ahead of time of how you want to map. MALDEF mapped, as Julia and James said, we at the Unity Table map for the Constitution, for the VRA, and then as many COIs as possible. So we go into it knowing we are not going to satisfy every COI. There are going to be arguments of communities testifying to you what their community of interest are, and that's going to be one of your hard choices. And you're also going to have hard decisions about when the VRA and other redistricting principles, which are full of competing mandates, will cause you to have arguments. So create your mapping principles ahead of time would be a suggestion as well.
And if I can, just to kind of piggyback on what Stephen just said, I think that point was really important, right? Like, communities of interest is not the only factor that you have to look at. And so while the late data certainly gives you more time to hear community of interest, testimony, it doesn't necessarily give you more time to consider those other factors, which are solely sort of based on the data that will come out, right? And so that late data is going to put a time crunch, you know, on the second half of the process, and in these other phases that we said that we're going to get to. So, you know, it really is sort of a you know, a gift and a curse, right? There is more time to get testimony, but there's also sort of this crunch on the VRA and some other factors that you'll have to consider.
The floor is open. Anyone?
I'll just throw in one last thing, and this is going off of what Stephen was saying, that, you know, this with this technology, I really think that it's important that we recognize the different ways that people are going to want to engage. We're already hearing locally that, you know, some people are saying, well, they're never going to, you know, go in person. Others feel like members of their community are going to be disenfranchised by this kind of technology hurdle. And in fact, in past redistrictings, you know, for the last 10 years that we've been doing this stuff, we really haven't used a lot of online mapping tools because it was that, you know, in-person engagement, being able to, even if it's with like a mapping, like a paper mapping tool, but that in-person engagement, that actual testimony is just so valuable, because it's not just being able to say, you know, like I'll be on a panel later this month talking about the LGBTQ community, and I can show you all the maps of the Castro that you want to see, but until you hear the stories and the reasons why that's actually a community of interest, what binds them together, the relationship that they have to state government, the reasons why the LGBTQ community you know, needs to be protected in a redistricting, until you actually hear those stories, you don't get the full picture. And that is that community of interest testimony and input is just really critical part of the process. And I don't think this is a situation where we can kind of just technology our way into getting something that's gonna, you know, just replace that.
Paul, that's a really important point. Linda, go ahead, and then we'll go to break afterwards.
Thanks, Paul, for that comment. That was really helpful. And just for clarification, when you talk about technology, you know, we can't technology our way through it. Are you talking specifically about the use of the communities of interest tool or other similar tools? Or are you also referring to the use of like Zoom, if we have like a, you know, if we go, as Stephen had suggested, maybe a hybrid where I do believe that Zoom allows maybe more people who can, through various methods, access, you know, a video conferencing to give testimony. I'm just looking for some clarification from you.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a family of things. I really do love the online mapping, and we're utilizing it. I think what was said earlier about, you know, you're going to be accepting online mapping through your own COI tool, and then also through other, you know, mapping tools that other organizations are using, and you're going to be, I think, benefiting from that. But either online or in person, you're going to actually have to hear those hours and hours of testimony that they heard last time. I don't think there's a way to really shortcut that. And that part of it is just as valuable as everything else. And a lot of what these, like, if you were to watch the last Long Beach Redistricting Commission meeting, the process they were going through was trying to figure out the criteria they're going to use to do their redistricting, the process they're going to undergo for that redistricting, communicating that to the public, and then figuring out a way to ensure that when they do their input hearings, they can actually hear from all different kinds of members for the public, and making sure that technology is helping, but not utilizing in a way where it inhibits others from participating. I mean, if you look at the people on here, we might all be more, you know, acclimated to using technology, but we're not necessarily representative of the full breadth of the population. Stephen also mentioned something that I think is really important, is the issue that not everybody feels comfortable putting their picture up on a Zoom like this, or maybe even coming up to a microphone. When we did redistricting for a local community college district in the Central Valley, Dolores Huerta Foundation actually did a lot of community of interest organizing with people who were afraid to go into a government building and testify and give their name and participate in that way. So they did things like collecting forms from the public about their community of interest and bringing those to the process and working to help facilitate that engagement with real people telling their real stories. And I just want to, emphasize that this process needs to be, really open to that and kind of process agnostic in a way, in that they're trying to get information from multiple methods and making sure that we're not leaving people out of the process inadvertently.
Thank you. So it's 5:32 right now. We need to take a 15-minute break. Hopefully everyone can continue to participate. I know some people need to drop off at different times. Just wave when you need to go. No need to feel bad. We'll miss you though. And so if we can all be back at 5:47. Does that make sense, Neil? Okay, great. Enjoy your break. Thank you, and welcome back, everybody. Hope you had a good break. We are going to do public comment before we go to the second half of the session. Before we do that, I did want to say thank you, Stephen, for going back to Trina's question. I'd highlighted it really big and wanted to go back to it, and I think it will be good for us to have more of a conversation on principles and how you all define it and how we can define it, because I have been asked that during sessions is what are you going to do with competing COIs, and I say I'm not sure, we haven't gotten there yet, but it does keep me up at night. Go ahead, Katie, sorry.
All right. In order to maximize transparency and public participation in our process, the commissioners will be taking public comment by phone. To call in, dial the telephone number provided on the live stream feed. It is 877-853-5247. When prompted to enter the meeting ID number provided on the live stream feed, it is 965-8366-7228 for this meeting. When prompted to enter a participant ID, simply press the pound key. Once you have dialed in, you'll be placed in a queue. To indicate you wish to comment, please press *9. This will raise your hand for the moderator. When it is your turn to speak, you will hear a message that says the host would like you to talk and to press *6 to speak. If you would like to give your name, please state and spell it for the record. You are not required to provide your name to give public comment. Please make sure to mute your computer or live stream audio to prevent any feedback or distortion during your call. Once you are waiting in the queue, be alert for when it is your turn to speak, and again, please turn down the live stream volume. And the subcommittee, commission members, and staff may not communicate with or receive communications about redistricting matters from anyone outside of a public hearing. Please visit our website for further information on how to submit official public input at https://www.wedrawthelinesca.org. And at this time, we do not have anybody in the queue.
We'll give it a couple of minutes just in case. Yes, Marianne.
I have a question while we've got Karen here. Any late word from the census on what we can expect?
Hi, thanks for that question. No, I think they're still on the same schedule. They are looking at the week of the 16th for release at this point. So that will be the 16th of August. And in terms of reapportionment data, that looks to be around the 27th of this month.
Oh, really? Great. Thank you.
And we do have someone in the queue, I would like to remind them to hit *9 to raise their hand, indicating they wish to comment. Again, if you're in the queue and you do wish to comment, please hit *9 to raise your hand, indicating you wish to share a comment. And they've not chose to raise their hand. Oh, there we are. And the floor is yours.
Hello, this is Renee Westerlusk, and I just have a question for the commissioners of this subcommittee. Is it going to be prohibited or either way recommended if you submit public input in a written form of some kind, plus maybe a COI map? Would you be prohibited or also encouraged to either way give public comment in a public hearing where you're in a setting with the commissioners listening about, what lines to draw? I just wanted to know would there be any restrictions if you've already submitted written comment? That's mainly my question.
Thank you for that comment. Currently, we haven't set up the guidelines, and so I don't see why we would have. But as we move forward, we'll include this in the questions that we are addressing.
And that was our only caller at this time.
Great. I put everybody should have gotten the link to the Moreau. So if everyone, we're going to move over to that, and I will share it so that the public can see what we're doing. If you didn't get the link, I did put it in the chat so you can cut and paste it really quickly and you don't have to find the email. And then I'm seeing you guys populate there. So I know the commissioners have all used this, and has everybody else used it? No. Okay. Welcome to Moreau. The writing looks really, really small right now, most likely for everybody. You each get to control your own screen, so you can scroll in and scroll out as far as you need. I think it's a great tool, but sometimes it can get frustrating because you'll move a sticky versus write. But basically, why doesn't everybody find your name? So at the very top, I put everyone's name on there. And when you find it, raise your hand so I know that, because I can see all of you. Okay. Israel, you're in the first group. Okay. Freddie, did you find you? Karn found her. All right. So as you find it, what we'll do is you see what color you are. Like Julia, you're the first one, so you're easy to find. So Julia is yellow, and you'll see it goes, and down below her, her stickies are also yellow. And then you'll see that the stickies to her right are yellow. So basically, you're going to be following your color, and I'll tell you what that means. The idea here will be, it's called brain writing. So you will write down your idea. You'll have 5 minutes to think through your idea, and I'll tell you what the question is in a second. When you go to write your idea, double click, and that will let you actually write. And and it will I think automatically put it on auto if it's not on auto already. And as you type, the font will adjust itself so it fits into that sticky. Don't worry if all of a sudden it's getting really, really small, because again, we can scroll into it to see it. After 5 minutes, I'll say, okay, now go to your right. When you go to your right, you will be going, so Julia would go to Linda, and Linda will have written down her idea, and Julia will go to the sticky pad underneath that and add to her idea, and then she will and then we'll do that for about 3 minutes, and I'll say, okay, go to the next one. And Julia would then go to Marcy's and read Marcy's idea, Linda's comment, Linda's idea and then add to that. So we'll do a few rounds where you keep going to the right, and afterwards we'll read each of the ideas across the top. And I'll say, if one of them is striking your fancy, go ahead and put an idea, because we don't have time for all 18 of us to look at all 18 ideas. What ideas? I jumped right into Moreau when I forgot about whole conversation about assets. I was so excited to use the tool. If you have the agenda that we created today, here, let me quit sharing for a second. Whoops. We a lot of times we just jump into what we've done before or what feels comfortable. And a lot of times we forget what we have that are our assets, our strengths, our tools. And, the first thing most people look at is, money. How much money do you have to build something or do something? But we have a lot of other strengths that we can build on. And we wrote down some of them. This was Neil and I kind of brainstorming together. Some of the assets that the commission has is our staff, community connections, both statewide, in our zones and our personal connections, the tool, both the paper and the web, commissioners' knowledge, relationship skills, hometown advantage. We draw the line, our website, social media, our relationships with Facebook and Google, presentations that we're doing, our reputation, our outreach and engagement funds, our media contacts. Are there other assets that, especially coming from the community groups and the line drawers, our guests, are there other assets that we should be thinking of as we're thinking through how do we leverage the assets resulting in increasing the engagement of Californians? And increasing engagement at this point is increasing the number of communities of input, people giving input, not necessarily with the COI tool and in any form. Anything missing on the list? Okay, so sorry, I was reading. Alvaro says that he needs to log in. Yes, Alvaro, you need to create an account. So what we'll do is now go to the other piece, which is thinking about all those different assets and trying to not get stuck in thinking just about meetings and hearings. How can we get community maps, community of interest, really hear from the community, the small bricks, as Stephen was calling them, to really use this time wisely? How can we be accessible, transparent, and inviting, and have people feel like they belong to this process? And when we say all Californians, we really want to our goal is to make sure that the COIs we collect are reflective of the diversity of California and diversity in the big set of in the big use of the word. Linda, the assets are in the working attachment. When you go into meeting documents, there's a working agenda and all that's in there. So we can go back to Moreau now.
And Patricia, when you go back to Moreau, go back to your instructions. The right, left you were talking about. I didn't get it. I'm lost.
You got it. So everybody find your name again. What you will do here, the first is putting your idea. So for instance, for me, my idea is spending the summer doing koi sprints. So I kind of shared my whole idea in the working agenda, but is really going out there and doing community mapping sprints and how can we get as many people as possible to provide their sprints. And then I kind of started thinking through our different ones of our assets that we have. So it was, okay, we can leverage our statewide outreach. And in thinking about that, it was like, okay, we've been asked for curriculum and train the trainers, and they want to be kind of the ambassadors for collecting this information. So how can we help these community, librarians be, koi experts and really get people excited about redistricting? Boys and Girls Clubs have said the same thing, and the PTA has asked how can they get involved. How do we look at our zones? Because the libraries and all those, the statewide might be good, but we still need to get to the local level. So can we train 3 community leaders from each zone? Just throwing out a number. How do we leverage our outreach and engagement funds, the grant making? And so I kind of just kept playing with it this way. So the idea here is that you would put an idea that you might have on how we can get more people to engage in communities of submitting their communities of interest or sharing their maps or sharing their stories, their community stories. After you write your idea in the first box underneath your name, which has the same color as your name, I will say, okay, move to the right, and you move to the down one and to the right to the box that has the sticky that has your color on it again. And you would add to the person's idea before you. And then I'd say, okay, now time to move to the next, to the right again. So you would move down one and to the right again to the yellow box. I keep using you, Julia. And you would look at Marcy's idea, Linda's comment to Marcy's idea, and then Julia would write down her thoughts on how to add it. So it's a brainstorming in a quiet fashion and just building on each other's ideas. And I think it'll make sense once we get started. Obviously, it's easy for me to say because I'm not going to play. I'm just going to watch the clock.
Yeah,
Neil,
so I put my idea in. You can see my idea is to put paper koi tool. So we're building a paper koi tool that people can draw their map and send it in. So my idea is to put that in each library in the state to enable those to provide input who can't access the commission otherwise. So in order to write on just double click on your sticky note and then you can start writing and the text will shrink as you start writing. Isra?
For this exercise, are we grouped into 3 groups, right? So I'm not jumping to another table per se, because the colors.
No, you're going to jump to the other table.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, just keep going to your right. What happened? Yeah, it looks funny, but don't worry about it. It was a template, and I had to use 3 templates. Yes, Marcy.
Can you repeat the prompt for the idea?
It's at the very top. How best can we leverage our assets to increase the participation of all Californians in the community mapping COA submission phase? All right, so I'm going to put some time on the clock so you guys can start. Ready? Are you putting any ideas or you're thinking?
I'm thinking while I'm confused, but thinking mostly.
And if you need tricks on how to use this, Linda is an expert.
Can you move mine back? It ended up here
Is that
somewhere.
you? I was wondering what happened here. Wait.
The story of my
Yeah.
life.
Where did this one come from?
That's mine. Oh,
Okay, there we go. How's that, Alicia?
Sorry, how do we get to write on it?
You double click on it. I know it's
Okay, I moved mine somehow. Okay.
This just grew. Is that yours again, Alicia?
Alicia,
oh,
she's very
I
proud of
like
her,
that
making it huge.
How do you
I
see
need
it?
to go to remedial
Okay.
training.
So to be able to go to see it, just zoom in, just roll in, and you can see it. Now, if 14 commissioners can figure this out, I know you all can. I don't think it's the most user friendly. I mean, it's a great tool, but I am always moving all the thingies around. All right, Trina's on a roll right now. If you finished your idea, feel free to go to the right and work on adding to the person to your right. I mean, to your left. So Jane, you would go Jane, you still need to write yours, and then you'll go to James, read James' idea, and then add to it.
How do you type anything?
You double click. I don't know. You
And then
somehow
what?
the other you did it here. Let me clean you up.
And then what? You don't. And
then hit when you
around.
double click, you should have a bar that goes up right above you. Hit auto, and then you should be able to type. But somehow the other you put in a design.
Good.
Okay, so what I would, let me see if I can. I'm trying to get rid of that one for you, but I don't think I can. So Jane, can you click once and delete? No? All right, go to the one below you and just write your idea there.
It's just so tiny.
And then what is
Scroll
the
in.
second thing? I can't see the prompt because I zoomed in. What's the second comment?
What's your second, what you're adding to the idea above you.
Oh, okay, got it. I see it.
Patricia, I don't see anything.
Where are you, Alicia?
Patricia hasn't put hers in yet, right?
Oh, okay.
My stuff disappeared. I've been trying to figure out how to get back in, and I've refreshed a few times.
You want me to write it? No, I can't write it in for you. It's just such a tiny, how do you make the writing bigger so you can read it?
You just scroll in for right now.
Okay.
I'm just worried about how I'm going to, what happens when I move this. Andrew, you look very serious.
I guess I'll just make my screen bigger. Okay.
Jane, I deleted your circle, so you should be able to just double click on your card now and write in it.
Ezra, Commissioner, or Ezra, I guess. LEAP, I looked it up. It's limited English proficiency.
Karen, did you have something on yours and then it disappeared?
I cannot get the screen to move for me at all, so I'm gonna sit this out.
All right.
Oh, me too. Can I use that?
I mean, yes, I bet you like this tool.
Oh, I'm horrible at this. I'm
Training.
All right, let me see what Paul has here. How do I make it bigger again?
Scroll in.
Scroll in?
Yeah.
How do I make it? Ah.
James, Julia, Stephen, do you guys use this in your community work?
No, first time.
You're not sure about it yet, huh? It's actually, it has a lot of good templates, so it has different ways of thinking things through.
But scrolling in and out was just too easy. But how do I get to the other part of the screen? Because I can only get so far.
You grab in the white area and drag.
And move it? Okay,
Yeah.
Karen, that's what you do. You grab in the white area and move it. No
You can only
sitting down.
comment it in your block. It was said earlier that you could go all the way across, but you can, since there's only, what, 6 blocks down, you can only do it in your block.
No, I did it from the top.
No,
I dragged
those
it
who
from
are
the
out.
top and it worked.
Yeah, Paul, I hear what you're saying. You can go to the next one.
Yeah.
You can also add stickies if you want. So if
Oh,
you
I
go
can
to
do
the
that.
far left, what?
Okay. Yeah,
you
I can do that.
you can add that way too. Paul's adding ideas everywhere.
I can type.
And anybody, and if you know, you can always go and start visiting the other ones.
We provide additional data in the census geography line environmental factor. Since we will now proceed to committee work with organizations that can provide additional data.
Oops.
Can provide.
I just like watching where you all are going.
Video promotions.
Jane, did you stop?
I'm taking a break. No. Is that Jane?
How do you write on people's notes again?
You double click on it.
Okay.
So go down one, except for Jane. It works for everyone but Jane.
Because
double click, Jane, double click, but don't move at the same time. Yeah. Yes, Freddie?
when I do that, I'm able to manipulate the person's posted.
But you're not trying to type on top of their posted, right? You're going to your color, your same color underneath it.
Where yet? Oh, there you are, Freddie. Okay. Unclick.
Yeah.
Okay. Did you write there? Is that one yours?
No, I want to write on that one.
All right. You want to write grab another post-it and grab and then write on it. So
Got it.
Okay, there you go. Now write.
So you can add a post-it.
Yeah, if you go to the far left, the little square says sticky notes, and you can grab sticky notes there.
I got it.
Don't give up. Try again.
Trying to educate open the process. We'll agree with this one.
Looking good, you guys. A lot of ideas. And for the public, we will be reading them out, so you'll be able to see them better.
Patricia?
I saw yours, Karen.
Yeah, so I think somewhere along the way, sticky notes got mixed up, so I'm just gonna disclose, I've been adding my thoughts on out of order now.
It's okay. I'm gonna play with it. I'll try to figure it all out later. As a facilitator, even if we were in the same room, sticky notes always get out. So, but I appreciate everyone's. Anyone still typing? Trina's going.
Yes.
Okay. Jane's typing.
Somehow I put a sticky note up and I have no idea how to actually post it.
Yeah, somehow, I don't know how, let me see. Resolve. Okay, here. Let me try this. Hold on. Let's see. There, I wrote it on your sticky note, Karen, what you had written.
Thank you.
Wait, that one. I was wondering, Freddie, were we talking about that? The people that make PSAs?
No.
Alvaro, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm just trying to read the small print at the
scroll
go through and scroll in and then read it and then try to type.
Yeah, I'm getting a little stressed out on what it'll look like when I pull it out, when I download it. Great. All right, so what I'm gonna do now, I know we're gonna lose some folks soon. Well, since Stephen's gonna be our first person that I know is leaving. Stephen, can we ask you to read your column? So go ahead and read your idea and then how people built on your idea.
If the question is what can the CCRC do with its resources? I first start is use your resources to help identify support for translation services at all hearings, so be in person or video. Looks like someone wrote find tools to help for folks to self-identify. I'm not sure. LEP means limited English proficient. So those that need help, that request help. Sorry, I see everyone's cursor, so I actually can't read all the boxes.
I think you can hide the cursors too. Let's see.
Yeah, you can go. I think it's up at the top.
Make sure this is promoted in online resources, but also in language, newspapers and radio as well.
Great.
As far as my train went.
And then there's one down below.
Oh, it's being typed.
All right. Trina, do you want to read your column?
Yep, I sure do. See if I can get rid of, I clicked on something, now I gotta get rid of it. There we go. Okay, so my idea, we had talked earlier about, I forget who it was exactly, James, someone talked about a chart. Oh no, yeah, it was James was talking about COI at a state level that needs to be thought about in a different manner than what local. So I just said create the chart that actually defines things of importance at each level, statewide level versus local level, and kind of give an example of what that would look like. Adding on to that, someone said chart materials that help explain a local COI might be different than a state COI, which is, yep. Add a key of which elected affected which area. For example, city, and then maintain your streets. Okay. And then this is a great idea. Perhaps this chart can also help identify why redistricting is important at each level of government and how each level of redistricting impacts people directly. I like the idea to make sure of why redistricting is important to individual and communities of interest and how it impacts them. Provide specific granular examples of how each level of redistricting impacts people differently. Beautiful.
So this is something that I was trying to figure out back when I was being interviewed, what the different levels of government were for redistricting. And I must have been thinking about it a lot because on Facebook, I had been doing some research and I couldn't find the right visual. I have it somewhere. I think I sent it to Freddie. On Facebook, my memory popped up and someone had created a visual for kids. And it was the best visual I've seen on the different levels of government and how it affects you directly.
That sounds right on.
I'll see if I can find it to share. After Trina comes Freddie.
Okay, so for mine, I said that we should have in-person meetings across the state to prepare for public input sessions. So use COI meetings, in-person meetings as a test run. Begin to incorporate a live COI tool filling out session to presentations where folks pull out their phone and start filling out the COI tool online. Have a live session with news outlets where they fill out the form.
Oh, you had multiple ideas.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I was like trying to read down your column. I'm like, wait, where are you?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Send out outreach workers with iPads to fill out the COIs on the spot at like supermarkets or like community centers. And and then keep track of how many COIs we have and maybe integrated into our website, like keep a count. I know we talked about having a map of California and pinning where people are filling them out. I think that'd be a cool visual.
Sounds good. Now, this time, Freddie, read your first one and then how people built on your idea.
I don't think anyone built on my ideas.
I did.
You did?
Yeah.
I
So
can't see it.
go from have in-person meetings across the state and then go down to the yellow one.
Oh, those are people addressing mine?
Yes.
Oh. Yeah, it says ensure in-person meetings are in a set mile radius that is equitable. Working to create a walk. Are you sure?
Yeah, I am sure. So Freddie, the way that it's working, where you said have in-person meetings across the state to prepare, and added on to what you said, I said, well, we can set, for example, we want these meetings to be equitable, so within accessible to people within a 200-mile radius, a 50-mile radius, or whatever that is. And so that's how that's adding on to your thought.
Got it.
I added on to that as well.
Yeah.
So go to the next one.
Work to create welcoming climates at in-person hearings. Some might be intimidated to speak and some may try to intimidate others. Yes, please, in capitals. As great as virtual meetings are, in-person meetings will capture people who would have otherwise been missed. And then have a balance for in-person and virtual. This way people have options.
Great. You see, Freddie, a lot of people built on your idea.
I didn't know how to read it.
Karen, do you want to go next?
But Patricia, before we go next, and can on the document to hide the cursors that gets confusing if everyone has not yet found that. If you're right where your picture is up at the top, where your color, where your face is, and then it says share, and to the left of that, the number of participants, then it should be a circle with your face in it perhaps, and then there's an arrow. If you click on that, that arrow will say hide collaborators cursors, and then they'll disappear.
Yeah.
Sorry, before, if I can just say, I would say thank you so much for having me. Unfortunately, I must leave for a previous engagement with another commission. Sorry if I had to cheat on you guys, but there's more than one of you now. One body now.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for your service.
Thank you so much.
Take care.
And Andrew, I know it's really late for you on the East Coast. I meant to bring that up earlier. Sorry.
Oh, good. Thank you.
All right, Karin, do you want to read yours?
Well, yeah. So sorry about that. I think I'm reminded that sometimes low tech needs to be included, especially when people are introduced to new technology and are supposed to use it in public. So I think I'm channeling everybody who is currently struggling with any kind of redistricting software. And what I was trying to add was that it might be a good idea to get for the commissioners perhaps to record and film some public service announcements that talk about communities of interest, what they are, and encouraging people to submit their communities of interest and also to participate, of course. But I thought maybe the first round could be, hey, here we are. We're going out, we're coming to your community. Please think about your community of interest. And here's an example for what a community of interest might be, and think about the geography. Because essentially, I mean, we've all talked about, you know, our communities earlier, Patricia, when you opened the meeting, and I think everybody had something to say, but not a lot of people said what the geography was. So, you know, it's this whole idea of the community of people that like dancing cats, they could be anywhere, and they perhaps don't, help us draw the lines, because we have to know your geography. So that pretty much was my idea. And then the rest of the time I was just frustrated with this interface. So apologies.
No, I get it. And I think that the ones below were building on Freddie's idea, right? Trina, you were building on the begin incorporating?
That is not me. But I did build on, yes, I was building on the begin incorporating. Yes, that's
okay.
right.
Okay. So what we will do, who wants to share their column? All right, then I'm going to call on Andrew.
All right. I wrote take advantage of partners like James, Julia, and Stephen to help training on the COI tool. They can help spread the word and provide feedback of what works and doesn't work. So if there's, we need to have more, I was thinking if we need to have more paper. Somebody mentioned, having, paper available at hearings or, at libraries, like some of those ideas, feedback to us. And then built on that, the next one was the CRC could help promote partner trainings to the public. The next comment was include partner trainings on the CRC outreach page. And then finally, create template trainings that organizations and community leaders can adapt to fit their own community. For example, adding logos, local details, local examples. So I think that, really like that idea to have a one size fits all originally, and then, be able to customize it.
Yeah. Any thoughts on that? Just chime up if you didn't have time to do a sticky, but an idea pops up. Julia, since I kept picking on you, we'll let you read your column.
Great. I was actually about to volunteer, so this worked perfectly.
Thank you.
So I had put to provide support to community-based organizations to hold events or celebrations that aren't per se a redistricting training, but where a large part of the event is to have folks talk about their community of interest and, what the different levels of government mean to them, and then submit their COI. And some folks built on that to provide CBOs tools to share at those events, provide materials so that they can easily adapt the content to their own communities, also provide materials in multiple languages. The CBO works with language minority groups. Someone said yes, which is nice. And then make this COI tool mobile friendly so that the community outreach workers can collect COIs at these events and submit them on behalf of the public. And then this exercise is, oh, here we go. It's an example of how some people benefit more from a technology-driven input process than others. And if I could just share one kind of reflection that motivated me to put this idea out there, it's that that when people are in dialogue about their COI, it tends to become richer and more nuanced and more detailed. So having an event where folks who already probably share COI because they're coming to this shared community space can talk to each other would lead to, I think, you know, better inputs that would help inform the commission's work more robustly. Yeah.
Great. Yes, and this isn't the best exercise, but the one reason we've enjoyed, we like this is because a lot of people can share. The positive of this is you don't have one loud voice getting all the attention, but everybody gets to think and reflect a little and write. Unfortunately, we can't all be in the same room. It'd be very exciting to be in a room with all of you working on this. Linda, do you want to start your column?
Okay. In some ways, when I think about it, I think what I put is similar to what Julia put. I was thinking that I think it was something that someone said earlier that perhaps one of the ways to, I guess, you know, be able to gain more people to provide input is, you know, instead of just a small number of us trying to get out there and do these trainings, you know, maybe we should reach out to trusted community members, not just the leaders, but the members to help, you know, provide presentations and or trainings. But, you know, it really comes down to those discussions that I think Julia also mentioned too. So because, you know, the more people we can help enable to be kind of like the Pied Pipers for us, the possibilities of being able to get more people who would be perhaps engaged or at least understanding of the process. And so the comment after that says, give trained community members tools for outreach, and in parentheses, social media, paper forms. The next one says, have training tools on CRC website and downloadable paper form. And then ensure materials are translated effectively, and also work with the existing local redistricting commissions / committees and have them encourage the same COI to the state level. I think that's it.
Paul, did you write that one? I just want to make sure I understand it. Also work with the existing redistricting commissions and committees.
Yeah, I essentially, one of the things that I have seen is that people who can submit to the state redistricting commission, that there's an encouragement that they can also use that to submit to the local commission or local redistricting. And as you're communicating, I know already, to some of the commissions, sending letters to them or trying to reach out to them and encourage when they create their tools to allow those to also be sent up to the state. If there's, you know, testimony about the local communities of interest in a local redistricting, it doesn't always directly relate to state policy. It might be really specific to the work of a city, like, you know, but still there could be some crossover there.
Yeah. And one of the things today, Isra and I met with the City of San Diego's redistricting staff. And one of the things the conversation we had was making sure that we're constantly cross-promoting, that there's more than one redistricting effort, so that folks are constantly thinking about that. So Marcy, Andrew, you already went. Oh, Marcy, Do you want to share yours?
Sure. Sorry, hold on. I can't find myself. Oh, I have to open it in the.
It's on the screen too, if that helps.
Okay, I don't think I can read. Which one's mine? Okay.
Whoops. The orange one right here.
Okay. I provide examples of a wide array of voice submissions. So, and then someone put include examples on social media.
Sounds good.
And it's hard in that little box to, I guess if I want to add to mine more, I think I've heard I think the way people frame it and really the storytelling component and how we can play on that storytelling aspect. And I think with so many different communities, I think about like the stories, from our grandparents and the way stories have been passed down and framing COI in that cultural storytelling component.
Mm-hmm.
There's one more down at the very bottom too.
Oh, okay.
Oh, here we go. Whoops, wrong way. There you go.
Using examples is powerful. We would have some COI form examples in our presentations.
Mm-hmm. Sounds good. All right. Isra.
Yes, I can definitely go through mine. So I put down place advertisements on social media and news outlets, also engaging with influencers. Let me just move the sticky, someone place over.
Yeah, right.
So the next sticky builds on it saying provide examples of COI's community of interest in a wide range of formats, video, narrative, online, tool, map examples, narrative only examples, engage various populations to interact with ads in different ways, i.e. youth, business owners, target areas that rely on newspapers and hyper local news sources, example, rural areas. Commissioners appear on social media for more casual appearances, Facebook Live as an example. Mm-hmm. In rural communities, place ads or letters to the editor in small local newspapers or other publications. Have users of social media help promote CRC. And then if you're doing outreach, you can build upon the work done by the California Counts and SOS when they were doing education around the by-mail election structure in the 2020 general.
And SOS is Secretary of State?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm assuming so, yeah.
Just making sure. All right. Now, all these ideas so far have been different from the others, but Stephen, you want to start with, Cecilia, I'm sorry.
That's okay. Let me look at it on this. So mine was paid social, similar to before, but it's paid social media ads in targeted areas. And then this is similar to the idea that I had. Social media is a great tool that can use for our purposes. The next comment is, I think there are a lot of ways to engage people on social media to promote meetings, COI tool, other engagement. And then, sorry, I'm like having trouble seeing it.
I put it on the screen if it's easier.
Incorporate other ideas around the examples of COI input along with other engagement opportunities. And create translated social media to both to reach communities or limited English proficiency communities and folks who might feel extra engaged seeing their language included.
Great. Thank you. Heading back up. Stephen, I don't think we've done yours, right? Oh, Stephen went first, sorry. And Trina, you already went, Freddie went, Karen went.
Yeah, let me say this on Karen's, because we didn't get a chance to build on her create PSAs. I thought it was an excellent idea from the standpoint, I recently got a chance, to do that PSA for COVID. And I can't tell you how many folk stopped me for that, because I felt like, who really watches commercials? You just kind of flash through them, right? But people from a wide area, including in the prison systems, family members said, oh, this person said they saw you, so I don't think we should get past that. I think we should make sure we're also utilizing PSAs as well.
And I
That
just had a
PSA
friend
was run in the middle of the Final Four. That's why people were seeing it. In Sacramento, it ran in the middle of the Final Four.
Oh, yeah, see? Nice.
Well, and I have a friend who works at a community clinic, and she had asked me if we had PSAs or something that they can have on a rolling basis in their waiting rooms. So, thinking through there's a lot of different places that have just rolling, like the city cable, city government cable channels and stuff like that. Alicia.
Yes. Okay, wait, let me get to. So mine was similar to Linda's, which I think is kind of funny. I think we've been spending a lot of time together, Linda, which is great. So mine was, and you have to realize that I've played sports my whole life, so I'm a little competitive in nature. And plus I'm number 7 of 8 children, so again, competitive. So mine was provide training to others to partner with us. And I put, can we have a competition or incentive for reaching a certain number of Californians? So that just goes on my competitive side. And then one of the comments, which I think was Freddie, I don't think Freddie completely understood what we're supposed to be doing, which was way okay with me. One of his suggestions was I was hoping you'd comment. You're talking about news outlets and where to fill out the form. And another one was shout out on our website, uplifting coalitions that are sending folks to our input COI, which is great. Redistricting trainings for the media. Yes. List of coalitions on CRC website. That's wonderful suggestion as well. Or competition incentive for getting hard to reach communities to be involved. Look at DHF, work to have their own COI meetings and gather testimony to send to the agency. So it was great. So thank you all for.
What's DHF?
Dolores Huerta Foundation.
Thank you.
So thank you all. Even you, Freddie, I'm thanking you.
Hey, before I forget, James, and you're in your the webinar that the Black Hub that you all did.
Yeah.
The spoken word at the very beginning, to me, that was a COI. And I was wondering if you were all going to submit it as a COI, because from the very, very beginning, when I started this, I thought it would be really cool to do a TikTok type of competition where people do spoken word about their communities, because that would attract youth. And then I learned that the Census had done something similar. But I do feel that what she did was definitely a COI.
It was certainly powerful and memorable.
Yeah. And then Trina and I have spoken about that webinar several times, and we were just curious, did you guys, is it video? Is there a link to it? Because others have asked about it.
Yeah, you all should have gotten a follow-up email with the recording, but I'll make sure to send it directly to you.
Yeah, I keep looking for it and I never got, did you get it, Trina?
No.
Yeah, I don't think it went out.
Okay, I'll make sure you guys get it.
Thank you, it was good.
Those of us who missed it, who signed up and missed it, got a follow-up email.
Oh, that's funny. But those of us who attended didn't get the follow-up.
Yeah. Got it.
Well,
Okay.
and I'll go back to check to see if I missed it. Maybe it's just on my end.
I'll make sure you got it.
Okay. And then, Paul, did you do yours already?
No. I forget what I did though at this point. Let me move
It'll
my
be a
little screen so I
surprise,
can see
Paul.
it. Okay.
You'll think, what a great
Oh,
idea.
yeah. Okay, good. So work with organizations that can provide additional data, especially if they can provide in that census geography. The two that jump to mind would be like CLCV. They have a lot of concerns around like noise pollution, air pollution, environmental factors, and a lot of that stuff can actually be mapped. And if it can be mapped, it can sometimes you could lean on those groups to say, hey, can you work with us to identify this stuff at the census geography? And that's actually what we did in 2011 with Karin. And we submitted like on a flash drive back in the day, a census block geography of some LGBTQ data that they could bring up as a community of interest as they were drawing maps in San Diego or San Francisco or other parts of the state. But that it's not just limited to that. You could work with other organizations that might be really active and want to do things and say, hey, can you work on the GIS side to kind of provide for us your layers of information that your team can work on. So the other people commented, display information provided by organizations and include on a CRC website. Great idea. That's what we've discussed in the past and should delve into further once we receive the census data. This actually might be a great example of something you can do well before you receive the census data, because we've got so much time and it'll allow for that COI input. How many COI submissions do we have at the moment? I don't know.
No, this is Freddie.
That raises the question: is there somewhere? Oh, that's why Freddie is doing that way.
Freddie.
Are individuals going to be, or are they yet able to actually see other maps that have been submitted? That'll be another, I guess, question. But invite video commercials to be COI stories and submitted and displayed on the website. You know, Dolores Huerta Foundation did Instagram Reels. Those like kind of like they're almost like a TikTok. Yeah. Yes, and name them for people. Not everyone knows their community. Might not be represented in the census. I think a perfect example of this. This will be the first time I think, and Karin can let me know if I'm right, but the Sikh community will be able to be represented in the census data. And not a lot of people maybe have seen, even in their own community, what that looks like. So being able to see that will be really interesting.
Great. And I know, you know, we could all just read the columns, but we're doing it out loud so those who are watching can also feel, you know, hear it. Jane, do you want to read your column?
You're on mute, Jane. Jane, you're still on mute. Nope, still on mute.
There you go.
Sorry, I had to change screens because I can only see everything when I go back to the micro. So hang on with me one sec. I had a bit of a time getting onto this in terms of typing, which does indicate there's a whole group of people who can't do this kind of certain technology. However, I said use radio to access remote areas of the state. And this is both Freddie and Karin were actually adding to this, which was, you know, put PSA things on it, use this as put the COI tool, you know, how-to, it's over here on the right. I was also doing what Freddie was doing, how to put that on the radio, specifically for remote areas. I think Paul said radio is a good example of a broadcast, large caliber outreach compared to targeted outreach, like social media. That way we may see more, but doesn't reach as much as a broad a segment. It's a very good tool, though, for the remote areas that is how they access things. Also get on the radio shows. A lot of people really follow particular shows. Very effective form of communication for rural areas as well as certain ethnic groups. The other thing that I did not mention, because I was going to try to put it on a different one, but I didn't see it anywhere, is in rural areas, actually try to put the paper in, say, with utility bills, the COI form. Because certain areas, particularly people who don't want to be found, it's a good way to get to them. And they go, oh, hey, and if it has instructions, they might not throw it away, particularly if they've heard it on the radio. So.
For those who may not know, several commissioners, that was how they actually heard about, the radio was how they heard about this opportunity. Including at least 2 commissioners on right now. The opportunity to apply. James.
Let's see. So my idea was to engage organizations that work with currently and formerly incarcerated people to ensure paper forms are accessible in correctional facilities and that orgs are trained to educate folks on the process. And so somebody said that we should also teach how to on the COI tool. Somebody else totally agreed with that. Appreciate that. It's one of our subcommittee's missions is we're now trying to meet with the major partners to come up with the recommendations on how to provide outreach to our incarcerated folks. And
Hey, I had an add-on to that someone moved. I don't know where it is.
Oh.
I was just saying that we can also try and do in-person meetings, just like speakers in the facilities as well. I think that would cause added attention and excitement that we took the time to show up.
Thank you, Trina. Thank you, James. All right. Neil.
I said to place paper COI forms in each library in the state to enable input from those who can't access the commission otherwise. And then connect with library association systems to ensure librarians are trained to explain the process if there are any questions from the public. You can use a SurveyMonkey type tool for collecting written COI testimony online. This is Burlingame. Okay, well, thank you for that link. We'll take a look. Create a companion activity that goes with the COI paper tool. Agree with this, but also provide training to library personnel.
Great.
Yep, it all sounds good.
And just to build on that while I'm scrolling up, Marcy is working with the California Library Association. They have given us a session at their conference. So we will start talking about that. Alrighty, Jamie, you're up.
Thank you, and apologies in advance for any beeping you hear in the background. It's my dog's dinner time and she's beeping at me.
I had that right before.
Yes. My suggestion was to implement a form through the CRC website where people can answer questions about or define their communities, including geographic boundaries of their community, and submit the input directly to the commission that way. Building on that, this should then go through the data management process and be input into the COI tool so it can be easily accessed during our mapping phase. I think that suggestion could apply to all of the input that the commission receives, not through the COI tool. Once the commission agrees that a COI should be recognized, the commission should have a way for that to be publicized so that we can also recognize it in unity mapping or regional map submissions. Example of this in Burlingame mentioned in Neil's. Yep, so same COI form example online.
Great,
and
thank you.
That's it.
Great. Alvaro.
Okay. Yes, can you hear me now?
Yes.
I like saying that. Sorry. Okay, so mine is a useful and easy online tool, COI tool or other. And the reason I put that is because I think it was yesterday or today, this morning, I received an email from someone sharing a different tool other than the COI tool. So, and I also heard earlier today that there are a number of different tools, software tools available. And so, you know, we may be getting input with a variety of different tools. So that was a enlightening aha moment for me today. And so someone wrote here, Jamie wrote, direct as many people as possible to these resources and create workflow for processing input not submitted through these resources. Absolutely, something that I started working on already. Ensure this input is tagged in a way that can be easily accessed. That is awesome recommendation. It's something that our data manager and our data management group is looking at, or will be looking at as we move forward. And ensure that the public has access and easily search through the input as well. Another great idea. We have to figure out how we're going to do that. And we're working with USDR to try to address that, you know, how we display that information. Easy to use map.
Do you want to explain who USD, just
I'm sorry.
what the acronym is?
I actually don't know what it is anymore.
Are they
US
data
digital
research?
response. Digital response.
Okay, US digital response. It's it can one of the two
Yeah, I
members
can
of that
jump in,
subcommittee. Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. USDR, US Digital Response, is a nonprofit volunteer organization born out of the COVID-19 pandemic, and their charge is essentially to assist government agencies speed up some of the technology needed in response to COVID. We qualified under the guidance that now we are in shelter in place, and we have to hold all of our meetings and interactions remotely and in a virtual setting. So, and that was due to COVID. So we're kind of like secondarily impacted by COVID from that lens. So they are helping us kind of sort through some technological aspects of our functioning.
Thanks, Ezra. How about it? Do you want to read the last, at the very bottom corner? There's one last one.
Yes, and thank you so much, Ezra. I would have not done it justice, that's for sure. The last sticky there is easy to use mapping and form type submissions, and make sure this is supporting, not supplanting public testimony. Yes, and we've heard that today. We want to make sure that we have multiple options, including the public testimony. Thank you.
So any closing thoughts on everything you've all shared and heard? As I said, we will have this in as a document so people will be able to look at it in more detail and think it through. And we will use this as kind of some more of the feedback for, you know, creating our recommendations for this commission that then would go to the full commission. Any thoughts, Julia? Nope, long day.
Can I make a comment since my it wasn't working? So I just have 3 comments, and I think this is more in the creative side. So I would just say we should also keep in mind that theater. So teatro, there was a couple of organizations in Oxnard and the Central Coast that use teatro to do, you know, some education in the census. So I'm just thinking about teatro, right? I'm thinking about videos, right? It was mentioned earlier, there was a couple of really good videos that were done in using really catchy music, and there was a contest, right? So that was done by the federal government, but I know that you know, creating a video, music video that was done, there were some really good ones that they developed for the census. And then the last one is also slam poetry. I was thinking, I did some poems when I was at the census, but I'm just thinking, how do you weave in redistricting into slam poetry? So this is a little bit more of making it more creative. And I think there is creative CVOs and individuals that would be interested in this part, as well as through the census. There's also visuals, right? Like you could do for some reason I'm thinking in Spanish, when you draw on the walls, right? So, how do you say?
Yeah, graffiti.
No graffiti, but you put a mural.
The murals.
Oh, murals.
Yes, the murals. Sorry, I lost. I was thinking in Spanish. Yeah, so the murals. So I know some of these items cost money, but I'm just wondering if there's budgets or some organizations that would be interested because of civic engagement. So those are just my thoughts that I would add without having the sticky notes.
Great, and I added them as you spoke, so there you have stickies now on there. Anybody else? Well, one other one that I know worked well a long, long time ago, during trying to engage migrant farmers and educating them in HIV/AIDS was comic books, creating comic books around the issues. But I could see that also working with redistricting because it allows you more pictorial.
I might have to catch you on that. It's graphic illustration. Recalling it as comic books, a lot of those graphic illustrators get upset.
I know. Yeah, my son's been reading a lot of the graphic novels. Anyway, once again, any closing thoughts, Neil? Do you want to say anything in closing?
I really want to appreciate everyone's input and thoughtfulness on this. I want to really, really thank our guests and helping us to think differently and more deeply about this as we're moving forward. And yeah, I guess that's it. Thank you all so much for participating. This has really been. I'd like to thank Patricia for designing and effectively facilitating this meeting. I'll work on my facilitation skills in the future. But thanks.
Here I am. Are we ready?
Oh, sorry. Yes, go ahead, Katie.
Okay.
And see if public comments.
Yes. Okay. In order to maximize transparency and public participation in our process, the commissioners will be taking public comment by phone. To call in, dial the telephone number provided on the live stream feed. It is 877-853-5247. When prompted, enter the meeting ID number provided on the live stream feed. It is 965-8366-7228 for this meeting. When prompted to enter a participant ID, simply press the pound key. Once you have dialed in, you will be placed in a queue. To indicate you wish to comment, please press *9. This will raise your hand for the moderator. When it is your turn to speak, you will hear a message that says the host would like you to talk and to press *6 to speak. If you would like to give your name, please state and spell it for the record. You are not required to provide your name to give public comment. Please make sure to mute your computer or live stream audio to prevent any feedback or distortion during your call. Once you are waiting in the queue, be alert for when it is your turn to speak. And again, please turn down the live stream volume. Commission members and staff may not communicate with or receive communications about redistricting matters from anyone outside of a public hearing. Please visit our website for further information on how to submit official public comment at www.wedrawthelinesca.org. And at this time, we do not have anyone in the queue.
Trina, would you like to share your wrap while we're waiting?
Absolutely. Absolutely, I would. While we're waiting for them to come in. I have a 9-year-old grandson and he thinks he can rap. And so I unfortunately have practice listening to him. And so when Patricia, you said no, and I'm thinking, well, shoot, me and Xavier could for sure come up with something, right? So I put, before you give that ring, pause for redistricting, name your community now, tell your commissioners how you want to be rep, right? So I have to tell Xavier, I've made up a rap on the fly for the commissioners and the public. That was my introduction. Thank you very much. It can be done, Patricia.
No, I love it. Any callers?
No.
And any
I'm
other
so
rappers?
used to say, I'm so used to saying chair. I was about to say no chair, but I will try to informalize.
Thank you, Katie. Any other raps before we leave? No? No raps? Okay. No spoken word, no eloquent Eddie. Okay. Well, I want to thank you all for your time, your patience with the tool. Hopefully, we did collect a lot of great information in a short amount of time. We've learned so much from all of you, and I hope that we can continue working as collaboratively because we're all in this for the same reason. We want to make sure that all Californians are equally, fairly represented and that we draw the best maps ever. Not possible, but ever. And again, thank you for everything you do and thank you for being here tonight. And I think with that, we can close.